Hello everybody. Today we're going to be going over Eli Color Lifting with Color manual. This is a really important one because again, we get to learn how to work on lifting naturally pigmented hair. Like any other color line in the world, color doesn't remove color. Eli Color isn't magic. So again, we can't remove other color that's been deposited on the hair, but this is when we're working on naturally pigmented hair, virgin hair. And so this is a really fun one because it helps us to understand what we're painting on once again. So if you want to pull out your manuals and open them up, talking about lift. Most of the time when we start working on natural pigmented hair, we want to do this because we want to bring out dimensional color work in hair and enhance their natural hair color. So lifting with color can be done to where we lift up to 4 levels from their natural. If you want more than 4 levels of lift, then we're getting into something more which we consider highlighting and very aggressive lifting, and where we're bleaching and toning and doing a lot of different things. So this is for more of a subtle lift and adding dimensional color into beautiful brunettes and browns. Okay? One of the first and most important things that we have to do is assess the color. And what I mean by assessing the color is in your consultation. What are we really working on? Have they really put color on their hair or not? Are you truly working on virgin hair? And this is your job as a hairdresser to assess it thoroughly and know what you're painting on. Because a lot of times they will tell you they've never colored their hair before, and I can see a little band, or I'm like, I don't know. If you have any doubt, do a test strand, because it will ruin your formula with what you're going to do. When they deposited pigment in their hair, it's a 50-50 chance if you're going to be able to move it, or you're going to be able to get any other color back into there. So it's very important that you have the consultation and find out what's on their hair. Because a lot of times they think if the hair's 6 months ago that they colored it, it's faded off or gone. If that hair's still there, the color's still there too, unless they cut it off. So it's really important to find out what you're working on, okay? Once you've found out what you're working on, and if you're actually working on virgin hair, then we can have a lot of fun here. And we can create some beautiful different tones for lifting the hair. You can lift the whole head if you want to change their entire natural color. You can do soft, subtle, dimensional color work through the hair, and lots of different things as long as you're working within 4 levels from their natural. So, the next page actually goes into probably the most important thing, what lives inside the hair, remaining pigment, and what we paint on as a hairdresser. And some of the things that we actually tend to forget when we're working behind the chair. So, inside the hair strand, we have 2 different types of melanin. We have our eumelanin, we have our phyomelanin. Eumelanin in hair is our heaviest, deepest melanin, and we refer to it as the blue. Although it has red, yellow, and blue in it, the blue and red are the more dominant, which leads it to a deeper shade, and it almost is a grayish blue. It's a larger molecule of melanin than the phyomelanin. So as soon as we open up the cuticle, the eumelanin dissipates. That's why when we lift hair with a lightener, we never see the hair go through blue, blue-violet, violet, red, violet. The first thing we see is red. When we're working with color on hair, these same things happen within the hair. We just don't see it. The only time we ever see this happen is when we're working with a lightener. But this exact same process happens when you're doing hair color too. You just don't see it because color is on there. So the hair is going to go through many different stages as you lift the hair with color. And this is very important to know what level you're lifting them to. So you know what lives underneath. Because if you know what lives underneath, you know what you're painting on. Because as hairdressers, we actually don't have the privilege of painting on a white canvas. We're painting on different types of shades all day, every day. And if you can't even see the shade that you're painting on because you're using color, that even makes it more tricky. So you need to know what lives in each level. Okay? And that's what we refer to as the remaining pigment, or the remaining melanin in the hair. So when you open up the cuticle, again, the first thing that dissipates is the eumelanin, which is the deepest, darkest pigments, leaving phyomelanin, which is your red, orange, and yellow. And as you lift those out, eventually the red will go. And as the red goes, and it goes through the orange stages, you'll hit to the yellow, and if you lift the yellow, you get to the pale yellow. Just like you would see happen with a lightener. Okay? We have a 5-step system with Eli Color. If you follow these 5 steps, you'll get predictable end results. So I want to go over each one of the 5 steps, and they're on the next page in the manual on how to break them down. The first and most important step, well, they're all very important, but the first and most important is getting the natural level. If you determine the natural level wrong, your entire formula is shot from the very beginning. So it's very important you get the natural level right. I use my, do we have this swatch book here? Perfect. One of the most important things is determining natural level is actually using your swatches to determine it. I've been doing hair for 35 years, and I find it quite shocking when I have a stylist in my salon that would look across the room and say, oh yeah, she's a natural 6. Really? I've been doing hair for 35 years and I can't look across the room and guess someone's natural color. Because light changes everything that we deal with in hair color. So use your natural series when determining natural level, because you're determining depth. Use your natural series when determining natural level, even on a redhead, because you're determining depth, lightness and darkness, not color. You're determining the level, the depth. And if you use the reds or the yellow oranges or the oranges or a copper looking tone on a natural redhead, you won't see the depth of the natural level because they're much more light reflecting. So always use your natural series when determining natural level. Again, when I was just mentioning light reflection can change everything, look how I can take this level 6, and when I let light go through it, it becomes lighter than the 7 next to it. I can take the natural 6 and take the light away, and it becomes darker than the 5 next to it. I just made it look 3 different levels right before your eyes, and I'm not magic. It's called light perception. So how can you determine natural level from across the room when you're sitting under a bright light? Very important to determine your natural level and get it right. And 9 times out of 10, your clients aren't going to land right on one of these anyway. In fact, almost 95% of the time, they're never going to land right exactly on one of these. So, when I determine natural level, and I lift up someone's hair, I always push the hair flat to the head so no light can go through it. So it will look deeper, and it will look darker. And most hairdressers never do that. They just slide it right into the hair, but light's going through their natural hair. So push the hair to the scalp so it's tight against the scalp so you can make it as dark as you possibly can. Then put the hair strand up to it. If their hair falls anywhere in between, formulate them for the darker one. Because the darker is what's holding the warmth. And that's what we're always fighting in hair color. It's the most difficult client that ever sits in our chair. The client that sits and says, I don't want any red, I don't want any orange, I don't want any yellow, I want beige, I want ash. No, you don't want ash, that's green. But how many of them ask you for that? Because they're afraid of red or orange. So, they're the most difficult clients to sit in our chair. The level 4 that wants to be an 8. No gold or red. Who can't make orange hair? That's the easy one. They can do that at the beach with some salt water and sun, right? It's a client that hates warmth. So really determining natural level is important. And it's the darker is your insurance. I'll have people say, well, Max, she was between a 5 and a 6, but she was much, much closer to a 6. She was like a 5.75. There's no points in hair color. Now you're making it way too difficult for me. Okay? If she's between, go for the darker. Always go for the darker. Even if she's almost a 6, and you formulate her as a 6, you'll almost get the color you wanted. But you won't get the color you wanted. You'll get brass. That's what they don't want. Formulate them for the darker. It's your insurance that you'll control that melanin inside the hair. That's the goal, to eliminate that stuff. So, first step, determine your natural level. Once you've determined your natural level, the next step is establish your desired level. What level do they want to be? Notice it doesn't say what color they want to be. At this point, I don't care what color they want to be. Now I want to know how light or dark they want to be. Because if I know what level they want to be, since I'm not using a lightener, I know what lives inside their hair at that level. I know the answer to number 3. What is the remaining pigment contribution at the level they want to be? I know today if this client wants to be a level 7, I'm painting on orange. That's the most important thing, to know what you're painting on. If you don't know what you're painting on, how are you going to choose the right formula? If she wants to be a 7, I'm painting on orange. Now, is the color she's choosing an orange color? Or is the color she's choosing natural? Now we can start formulating. If she wants a warm color, that's real easy. How about making her orange? Because we can do that really easy, because orange lives underneath. That's why most manufacturers at level 7 create the majority of their oranges. Because guess what lives underneath at level 7? Orange. It's never going to fade. If they hate red, but they want orange, and they always say it's too red, I want more orange, don't make them a level 6. Make them a level 7. You'll get rid of the red that lives underneath. Make them orange. Does that make sense? Let this become your best friend and let it work for you. If you're making them a level 6, and they don't want any red, they want an orange, you've got to get rid of the red. You can't just put a 6 orange and expect it to become orange when red orange lives underneath. Well, it still looks a little red, I wanted more orange. But how many of you are going to think, well, I'm going to use 1/4 of my formula, 6 green, so I can neutralize the red, and the 3/4 of my formula, 6 orange, so they see orange at level 6, and no red. That's called the law of color. That's the most important thing about hair color, is understanding what you're painting on. So, natural level, desired level, where do you want to take them? What lives in the hair at the level you want to take them? Do I want to use it or lose it? Next, do they have any gray in their hair? And how am I going to deal with that issue? And last, which activator am I going to use to get my job done? If you follow these 5 steps, you're going to get predictability. Now, these shapes right here can vary very much on skin tones, what your ethnicity. I mean, if you have someone from Sweden and you have someone from Mexico at level 7, do you think the Sweden might be a little more cooler and not have near as much orange as the Mexican girl that might maybe have some red left at level 7? These are guidelines. These are guidelines. This is a good guideline for predictability. But skin and eyes tell me everything. I can look at you, and I can look at her, and I can say, wow, I know at level 7, you're going to be much cooler at level 7 than you are. So am I going to leave a little bit more green maybe in my formula here, where I might pull a little red still, where if I put any green on you, isn't a really good idea. So again, guidelines. Skin and eyes tell me everything when I start to work on a client. And I pay attention to that as well as I pay attention to this. And it's very, very important that you do that when you're working on your clients. If you see freckles and red skin and someone who can't really go lay out in the sun in Barcelona, I wouldn't make them a beige, cool ash blonde. That's not going to look pretty on them. And you can't get them there anyway. Have you ever had the level 6 redhead that you just can't make a light white blonde?
Yeah.
I wonder why. But you can grab someone who's very dark and they get blonder. Look at their skin, because that same melanin that's in their skin is the same thing that's in their hair. And use what complements them. So, follow your 5 steps. Your first step of your natural level, your second step, your desired level, third, what lives in the hair where you want to take them, fourth, do they have any gray, and then which activator am I going to get my job done. So I want to talk about each one of our activators with Eli Color. Eli Color, we have our 3% activator, that's our 10 volume. 10 volume with Eli Color will give you 1 level of lift. It will also, if they're a level 6 and you use a 6 color, you can stay the same level. In another category, in our other manual that we have, is depositing with color. You can also use your 3% for going darker. So 3% will give you 1 level of lift, work within the same level, or give you darker colors depending on the tube that you choose. Okay? Processing time with our 10 volume 3% is 25 minutes. A lot of times if you're using 3% on resistant gray hair, you could let it go up to an extra 10 minutes. After 10 minutes, it's not going to make a difference, okay? And we'll go over that when we get to the gray coverage manual. We have our 6%. 6%, 20 volume, will give us 2 levels of lift. It takes 35 minutes for this for its processing time. The next one is our 30 volume, which is 9%. 9% will give you 3 levels of lift. 9% will also take 45 minutes for you to get the 3 levels of lift. Then we have our 12% 40 volume. 40 volume gives you 4 levels of lift, and it takes 55 minutes. The number one reason hair color fades is lack of processing time. That's the number one reason. It's taken off early. Because what happens when you're using color and activator, the ammonia, when hit with the activator, or your alkaline agent, when hit with the activator, starts the oxidation process. The ammonia softens the cuticle. The activator starts giving you your lift. The first 75% of processing time, depending on the activator you're using, is the lifting process and pulling out the melanin in the hair. The last 5 minutes of processing time is when those pigments, the color molecules, are going inside the cortex and bonding with the disulfide bonds and forming a chain, a polypeptide chain within the hair structure. If you cut that last 5 minutes off early and that polypeptide chain doesn't form, within 1 week the pigments fall out and you're going to see RPC. I don't know why my color turned brassy. And the hairdresser says, what shampoo did you use? Did they really use the wrong shampoo, or did you leave it on long enough? Very important. Eli Color's non-progressive. You can leave it on over time. It will never hurt the hair. You could leave it on for 3 days if you wanted. It'll just turn into a gel and quit working. It won't get darker or lighter, it'll quit. But never take it off early. It's the most important thing. I had someone ask me the other day, well, if I'm using 12%, couldn't I just leave it on for 20 minutes and lift it up for 2 levels? Or leave it on 30 minutes to lift 3 levels? Or leave it on longer to lift 4 levels and then just stop where I want? If that was the case, manufacturers would make only one volume and tell you, okay, take it off in 10 minutes for this level, 15 for that. No, because you're not going to form a polypeptide chain. You're not going to bond the color in the hair. All you're going to do is lift and rinse the color out. And you're going to see RPC. That's why we make different activators. Does that make sense? So, when you're determining your levels of lift and what level they want to be, that will give you the answer to which activator you want to use. Again, I put a chart to make it much easier to see how to formulate different things when you're formulating. I know if I'm lifting someone from a 2 to a 6, 2 levels lighter, at level 6 I'm working with red and orange. I can grab Eli color 6 blue-green, which is the opposite of red and orange, and get a perfect end result if I use my 20 volume, which is going to help me lift the 2 levels. Does that make sense? For me, when I'm lifting 1 to 2 levels, a single dye load works perfect. Again, based on nationality, I might say, well, wow, I might need a double dye load on someone that has very brown, rich eyes, and that's a level 4 that wants to be a 6, and say, a single dye load's not going to be enough pigment. I need more pigment. I need more control on them than I would on you again. So, if that's the case, you can use a double dye load, and that's why we make double dye loads of pigment. But definitely, if you start lifting more than 2 levels and you're lifting 3 levels from their natural, I would always use a double dye load. You need that much more pigment because you're lifting 3 levels and you're pulling out far more warmth. Does that make sense? And if you start lifting 4 levels from their natural, it's a very, very good idea that half your formula, the remaining pigment, is where you're starting. So many people have asked me, Max, why do you make green past level 6 when there's no red in the hair at level 7, 8, and 9? Well, the reason I do is because for the people who want to lift 4 levels, if you're lifting 4 levels from your natural, half of your remaining pigment isn't where you're going, it's where you're starting. Does that make sense? And where you're starting, levels 4, 5, and 6. What's the dominant pigment? Red, red, and red. And the opposite red is green. So if I'm going to be taking a 4, 2, and 8, half my formula better be 8 green. Does that make sense? So, 1 level to 2 levels, a single dye load. 2, definitely 3 levels, a double dye load. 4 levels, you need a double dye load, and half your remaining pigment is also where you're starting and where you're going. And you'll get successful color results when trying to control unwanted warmth. If you want warmth, look at what you're painting on and enhance it. But again, sometimes you have to neutralize even when you want warmth, like the client that I mentioned earlier. If I was taking a level 4 to a 6, they really wanted it to look like a 6 orange with no red, 4 to a 6, 2 levels lighter, I would need my 6%, 20 volume. I know at level 6 I have red, so I'm going to use a quarter of my formula neutralizing pigment. A good guideline is 1/4 of your formula neutralizing pigment when you want warm tones. 1/4 of my formula would be what I need to neutralize that red so I can see the orange. So I would use my 6 green. It's 2 levels. I wouldn't use a double dye load because I'm not trying to go for a cool tone. I would just use, and you're only lifting 1 to 2 levels. Like I said, a single dye load. So I would use 1/4 6 green and 3/4 6/0 orange, and I'll get pure orange without seeing any of the red at level 6. I get this a lot of time with the purples. I don't understand, I used your purple and it came out mahogany. It looks red violet. Your purples aren't purple. And I asked them, what did you put it on? Well, I had a client, she was a level 3, so I used your 5777 purple, and it came out red violet. Well, what lives in the hair at level 5? Red. So what's red and purple gonna make? Red violet. What gets rid of red? Green. How many of you ever thought, well, at 3205, I'm lifting 2 levels, I'm gonna grab my 6%, 20 volume, but I have to get rid of that red, so I'm going to use 1/4 of my formula, and it's bright red at level 5. I'm going to use 1/4 of my formula, 5 green green, and 3/4 of my formula, 5 triple purple. Wow. And you get purple. Do you see how important it is to understand what you're painting on? To become a perfect colorist? As we don't paint on white and just say, well, it was purple, I just don't understand why it's not purple. It's because we didn't paint on white. If we had white, it'd be real easy. Because all the colors would come out exactly like they look like on the swatches. That's where it becomes really fun as a colorist when you learn, when you start working on gray hair and you still have naturally pigmented hair. Because now we're painting on 2 different things at once and trying to create one formula that's going to work on both. Do you have any questions with lifting with color?
I have a question. It's a probably a silly question, but it's on natural levels. Obviously, we look at someone's natural level. So would their hair have changed? So when I was 20, my hair would my natural level be different to what it is now I'm 30?
Yeah, people's natural level changes all the time.
Yeah.
Lots of times you'll get your towhead blondes when they're born, and the older they get, their hair gets darker.
Right.
A lot of times it changes. Darker hair gets, of course, lighter. And as you lose your melanin and hair becomes gray, it's a loss of melanin, but it's not completely gone. If your hair had no melanin in it, it wouldn't be hair. So even gray hair that looks white, have you ever got bleach on it? What color does it turn? Yeah. There you go. You still have phyomelanin in the hair. If there was lacking phyomelanin, you would have no hair. That's called bald. So you have melanin in that hair. So a lot of people forget when they're painting on gray hair too, you're painting on yellow hair, which is the white hair, and then whatever color the pepper is going to be depending on the level you lift. And that's what our next manual is going to be on, is gray coverage manual. Thanks for coming today. I hope you have fun lifting with color and create some beautiful, beautiful shades.